words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be pleasing to you, O God. This is a powerful gospel, and I would argue that it may, I'm going to shut the personal mic off this way. It doesn't cause feedback. This is a powerful gospel, and I would argue that it may actually be perhaps even the most powerful gospel in all of the gospels. And I know that there are probably many people who would disagree with me on that, but the reason for this is because it basically sums up the entire ministry of Jesus in a nutshell. Jesus was a healer. Jesus was a teacher. Jesus was a confessor. Jesus was God. He also was not a chump. And what I mean by that was, he also did not allow or just ignore the fact when people take advantage. So in this gospel, I'm going to explain this. In this gospel, we've got 10 people, 10 lepers, all of which had leprosy. They were lepers, they had leprosy. They social distanced. So apparently this is nothing new. This is nothing new. This social distancing, this is nothing new. 2,000 years ago, they knew that social distancing was important, okay? And yet, for some reason today, people just can't seem to wrap their brains around that. I'm going to sidetrack for a moment and discuss that, and I'm going to explain, and I'm going to go back to this. When you don't social distance, you are not just risking your own health, you're risking the health of somebody else, of others. You could potentially be sick and not even necessarily know it. So masks or face shields, some kind of face covering in some form, and a fair amount of distance in between is really, genuinely, truly, 100% important. They knew this 2,000 years ago. And 2,000 years ago, they definitely did not have the medical science or technology or understanding that we have today of hygiene or any of that. And they knew enough to social distance. Now I'm going to get back to the gospel. So, these 10 lepers, they all called out to him for healing. Only one gave thanks. Only one gave thanks. Jesus says, "Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except for this foreigner?" And then he said, "Get up, go on your way. Your faith has made you well." There's an important piece here. We are called to give thanks to God. We have a tendency as human beings to allow ourselves to take. To allow ourselves to take. We take and we take and we take from one another, from our families, from our friends, from God, without realizing that we've taken so much, but what have we given back? What have we given in exchange? God is not a chump. He expects something from us. And what he expects from us is he expects us to give to one another. To show love towards one another. To show grace towards one another. That's very important. That's very important. That's a key factor. That's a key factor in what it means to, number one, be a Christian. Number two, be a decent human being. You know, I'm thinking in particular of this one story, and it's a true story. I've actually told it before, but it's a story worth telling again. And it didn't happen all that long ago either. There was a homeless person, who came to a church in a local area. I'm not going to say what church, okay? In a local area, and the clergy person knocked on the rectory door. The clergy person answers, and the guy says, "Do you think that you can give me something to eat? I'm hungry." And the clergy person says to him, "Food pantry's down the road in Newark." And slammed the door in the guy's face. Now, there's a few problems with that. Number one, in addition to being an ordained person, this person treated this individual who was homeless, who was hungry, he wasn't asking for money. He wasn't asking for money or for alcohol. He was just asking for food. The first problem with this is, as an ordained person, most denominations take vows to uphold the principles of the gospel. And one of the principles of the gospel is to love your neighbor, to treat others with respect, to treat others with dignity, to show compassion. He could have grabbed a box of cereal and given it to the guy, or invited the guy in and made him a cup of soup, anything. Given him a Snickers bar, but he didn't. He just threw him to the trash. We have a tendency in our culture to throw people to the trash, and that has got to stop. Now, for the past few years, that seems to be a common theme in our culture. We don't like somebody, we just toss them aside as if they don't matter. We just toss them to the trash. We got to stop that. We've got to stop that, because it is not the Christian message. It is not the way of Jesus. And even if you're not a Christian, it's just not being a good person. I think it's important if we take inventory of what we have done to help our fellow man. Not just in the season of COVID, not just when it's convenient for us, not just when we're able to, but just in general. And how can we rectify that? How can we make change? How can we make that better? Joe, you're a cop. You told me a story not long ago about how you had to give a CPR to somebody who was dying. That's a risk that you could have potentially died, especially in the middle of COVID. But you put yourself, your safety aside for somebody else. That's what being Christian is about. That's what giving is about. It's not just about money. Anybody can throw money at a problem. Anybody can even throw food at a problem. It goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. There's an old saying that my grandmother used to say: God helps those who help one another. And that's true. If you don't help one another, why would you expect God to help you? As we approach the Advent season, let us keep that in mind. How we treat one another, how we act towards one another, but also how we act towards